Hello everyone, and here we are on the second video of our genomics, neurotransmitters, and endocannabinoid system masterclass. So neurotransmitters are the second video that we put together, and we believe this is really important because they shape your personality, feelings and emotions. They are also present throughout the body, including the immune system. So neurotransmitters are a very, very crucial messenger in our bodies. So we already talked about genomics, and the third video is going to be about the endocannabinoid system, as we just said. In the table of contents, we have neurotransmitters, imbalances that impair your life performance. We're going to see a few examples of that. How we make neurotransmitters, the autonomic system influences neurotransmitters balance. We're going to see the balance of dopamine versus serotonin, understanding those imbalances, and also understanding the report. So, negative effects of neurotransmitter imbalances. So decreased judgment, and that is actually imbalanced dopamine. Increased food cravings are also regulated by dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that triggers our behavior and desires and reward. So all of our planning to get to a goal, to obtain a reward, involves dopamine action, mostly in the prefrontal cortex. Increased impulsiveness. That means that we have increased norepinephrine and adrenaline, which are, as we know, stress hormones that stop us from thinking properly, because all the attention is going to the amygdala, which is the fear center. So that makes that our judgment is clouded, because the impulsiveness actually takes over. So usually you make norepinephrine from dopamine, and if that enzyme that makes the change from dopamine into norepinephrine makes it too quickly, then you find yourself impulsive and bored. And that's the story of ADHD. So decreased creativity is compared with low serotonin and also a scarcity mindset. Decreased memory consolidation is also a manifestation of low serotonin, and decreased willpower is also a manifestation of low dopamine. So when we wake up in the morning and we are like, oh my God, another day. So that means that we have no dopamine, as opposed to, oh, it's morning, I'm up and ready, let's go. So it all depends on the biochemistry in our brains. So how does that work? And this is what we call the neurotransmitters functional cascade, but it's pretty much a big word to how we make neurotransmitters and how does it work. So we can see here on this very linear graphic that we need nutrients to actually synthesize or make the neurotransmitter. We need a protein to actually carry that in the blood. So usually the neurotransmitter needs like a little taxi that needs to carry it in the bloodstream to the different organs. So once the neurotransmitter reaches the organ, it binds to a target receptor, and then an action takes place for a period of time, and then the last step is that it needs to be eliminated or broken down and recycled, because many of these molecules, there's many of these chemical groups that are reused over and over again, and that is what keeps these networks in balance. So having enough of those multiple nutrients. So something else that is important is that to understand that our bodies work on a regimen of a circadian rhythm, which is our 24-hour cycle, because as we can see here, derived from traditional Chinese medicine, this shows us how different organs are engaged at different times of the day. Like they take roles. And this is related to the different elements of nature. And at the center of it all, you have the yin and the yang, which means that they are in a balance with each other. They have different states that actually includes a little bit of each other on each part. So basically, there's white in the black and there's black in the white. So there's always this balance going on with the yin and yang. So the ebb and flow of hormones and enzymes and changes in circulatory activity over the course of 24 hours. All right. So this is what proves that, those cycles need to happen because it is happening over and over again. So the main gland that controls our circadian rhythm is actually our adrenals, but also our pineal gland and our pituitary. So all of different glands are acting together to maintain this balance. So how complex is this concept? I just want you to sit with it and think about it. So what controls our neurotransmitter balance? So that means it is the autonomic system. And the autonomic system is triggered by environmental factors. The autonomic system has two ways. So we were talking in the yin and the yang, the black and the white. So there's two sides. So the sympathetic nervous system is what allows us to run for our lives and save ourselves for perpetuation of the species and to preserve our physical integrity. So when we have the sympathetic system is activated, it's the fight or flight response, and it causes dilatation of the pupils, mouth dry, the lungs get a lot of oxygen for energy, the heart rate increases, the gut, it's not functional. We get a knot in our stomach when we get stressed out. It's not the time for eating. There is a release of glucose from the liver, so we get high blood sugar as a reaction of stress, and the stimulation of the epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are angry molecules, and we may need to move our bladder. And in terms of the sexual act, the ejaculation is sympathetic while the erection is parasympathetic. So on the other end, as we said, the parasympathetic system is what is in charge of everything that is rest and digest and reproduce. So it is exactly the opposite. So it really contracts the pupils, stimulates salivation, constricts the bronchi, and decreases the heart rate, stimulates the gut activity. And in the gut is where the immune system is. So if we want to have an immune modulation effect, we need to get in a parasympathetic state in a proactive way. It also stimulates gallbladder. There's no adrenaline. It's exactly the opposite of the other system. So there's neurotransmitters that are in excess. A lot of them, when they are in when we are in a fight or flight on a sympathetic state, and these are the ones, so dopamine, adrenaline, norepinephrine, and glutamate. And then parasympathetic are serotonin, which is what you feel good after having a meal or immediately before going to bed. And then from that serotonin we make melatonin in the presence of magnesium, vitamin B6, and darkness. We also have GABA, and we have the endocannabinoids and the endorphins, which are very large networks that we're going to talk about on the third video. So let's talk about a little bit about dopamine versus serotonin. And what I want you to retain out of this is that they are both produced by the same enzyme. And these two neurotransmitters are the most important regulators of our character, our personality, our temperament, which regulates how we interact with the environment around us, including our relationships. So dopamine is actually, this blue area is the area of focus, or where the dopamine networks are present. And there's also here on the brain stem and on the hypothalamus, because it also controls fine motricity. And the most important part is actually here on the prefrontal cortex. What do we do there? So we have the center of reward and motivation. So doing your schedule, being on time, managing your time, your normal level of motivation to do the right thing and make the right choices, it all lives there. It's dopamine. And it is related to pleasure, to euphoria, motor function, fine-tuning, as I said. And dopamine can lead certain people that have dopamine imbalances to get into compulsions, which is the action in response to an intrusive thought that is the perseveration. All right, so this is one of the manifestations of the obsessive compulsive disorder, which is obviously an imbalance between dopamine and serotonin. So, on the other hand, serotonin uses a much larger area of the brain, and it is actually more related to our mood. When we wake up in the morning and we're like not in the mood for anything, that means that the serotonin is low. And because we make our melatonin from serotonin, most likely the quality of the sleep is not good either. So we need to have a healthy mood if we want to have a healthy sleep. And serotonin is actually, scattered all across the brain cortex, and is involved in memory processing and also on sleep, as we said, because we make the melatonin from it, and cognition. So in my clinical experience, I helped children with developmental and learning disabilities, and by supporting their serotonin with CBD, they went from a class with problems to a regular class just by normalizing their circadian rhythms, their sleep, and then having a good mood, and then they can focus. So it's actually like a sequence of events. So this is very important because you're going to see that these two, we can have a very good idea of how we make them, how we transport them, and what we can do to balance them. So what happens when there is an imbalance? So what I explain to all my clients is that these neurotransmitters and all nutrients in general that our body needs for, to make energy, etc., and to survive, they are like in buckets, like in reservoirs or pools. And there, as we said, we saw on the Cascade, we have to make them, then we have to transport them. The receptor needs to be in good shape, and then we need to break them down so that, it can happen all over again when it's needed. So what happens is that we get intoxicated with our own stress hormones, and all of these neurotransmitters that are excitatory and they are not happy neurotransmitters, then like when they are in excess, then it's overflowing. So that's actually the image. And then on the parasympathetic neurotransmitters, which are these, then the bucket is empty. So that's the imbalance between endorphins or parasympathetic and sympathetic, which is controlled by the autonomic system. So here we see that again, as we had mentioned earlier, it can be affected on all of these stages. So this is a very complex picture, and I wanted to give you an idea of how much information we can cope with. So you don't have to learn any of this, but I'm going to explain to you exactly what these are, and basically you will see that the nutrients are what doesn't have the blue. Those are nutrients, and these boxes are enzymes, and the level of blue in these rectangles, horizontal rectangles, is what determines their functioning, their level of functioning. And I will explain to you what these enzymes are, but for now you can see that some of them go almost to the 100%, but this one is 50, this one is about 50, 55%, that is about 40%. Okay, and this is knowing this information allows us to give the right vitamins or supplements which are needed in order to support these enzymes. And it's not only about supplements, it's also about lifestyle changes. So for example, this is the how we make dopamine, which is here in the center, and how we make serotonin, which is by the same enzyme, the dopamine D-decarboxylase. So how do we make dopamine? So it starts on the left. L-tyrosine is an amino acid which is used by this enzyme called the tyrosine hydroxylase, which uses vitamin C and betaine to make L-dopa. And this L-dopa is used by this enzyme to make dopamine. And then how do we make serotonin? So on the right, we have L-tryptophan, which is another amino acid that is used by the TPH2 and TPH1 to make 5-HTP, and then from there we make serotonin. Now, the breakdown part happens afterwards on this part here. So the dopamine needs to be used by these enzymes to be broken down. Now, my COMT doesn't work that well, and MAOA doesn't work too well either. And my DBH it works about 50%. So what is my issue? So how I make serotonin is affected. So I take 5-HTP in order to support my serotonin, and my brain is doing awesome on that. Now, when I am on a period of stress, and what I actually want to say before I get there is that, as you can see, I have these imperfections that, if I don't make here very well, but I don't break them down too quickly, then I get to find my balance. And at the end of the day, it works because I have never been clinically depressed, ever. I have had my moments, etc. But sleep has been by stages. When I am under stress, etc., sleep can be a problem. But that can happen to most of us. So knowing these particularities is what allows us to be proactive about it. So, and even there, it can be difficult to really hack your sleep and have, all the good requirements for a healthy sleep. So, I don't want to make it too difficult or too long, but this is what breaks down. So it makes norepinephrine from dopamine, this enzyme. So this is where ADHD lives. Okay, and if we have a high activity of this enzyme, then we burn our dopamine too quickly, we go low, cannot focus, I am bored, and then this stuff makes me aggressive and impulsive. So that's a story of a lot of children that we need to do multiple food and supplements and lifestyle interventions to modulate this enzyme and these enzymes and basically get back into balance, because most of us are able to achieve some type of balance. So these two as well, how I break down my dopamine and serotonin, you can see here. So that's basically, we can do that with several different types of mappings, from detoxification, biochemistry, anything. So really it's very, very intense. So on the report, the genomics report, we give you, so if it's red, it's actually that the affected nucleotides are from both mom and dad, and we call that homozygous. And that means that the function is more affected, so it's more clinically relevant, we call it, which is more important for us to put action on it. When you see a yellow box, it's because it's one affected and the other one is healthy. When you see the green, it's because they are both beneficial, and that has a protective effect. And as you can see, if you have gray, it's either positive or it's not really relevant. So as you can see on the lower box here, you have this heterozygous beneficial, you have this one that is homozygous for risk, and you have one that is heterozygous for risk. All right, and we have some of the maps, and we, according to how many of these are and what kind of clinical problems you are presenting with, that's what will allow us to coach in the right direction. So these are an example of my vitamin D receptors. So as you can see, I have a few reds and some yellow. These are the SNPs, and I have increased risk for, low bone density, breast cancer, melanoma. So these are possible outcomes if I don't take proper care of my vitamin D receptors with enough vitamin D as well as light therapy. And as conclusion, we can say that neurotransmitters are brain messengers that are made from nutrients. So nutrient deficiencies are a commonly missed root cause of imbalances, brain imbalances in general. The protein complexes that make neurotransmitters can have increased or decreased activity according to the presence of SNPs. The deficiency can happen at multiple levels of the cascade of production of neurotransmitters, and the genomics test can tell us with precision where the support is needed. Finding some time to elicit a parasympathetic relaxed state is very important for neurotransmitters balance, and your genomic tests explains why of all your brain issues and guides us in lifestyle interventions in the best interest of your brain biology. So I hope that this has been helpful for you to understand how neurotransmitters work and what we can do in order to balance them. Thank you very much, and I will see you on the next video.